Reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew. At that time Jesus was led by the Spirit into the desert to be tempted by the devil. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterwards he was hungry. The tempter approached him and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones become loaves of bread." He said in reply, "It is written, one does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city, made him stand on the parapet of the temple, and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, He will command His angels concerning you, and with their hands they will support you, lest you dash your foot against a stone." And Jesus answered him again, "It is written, you shall not put the Lord your God to the test." Then the devil took him up to a very high mountain, and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in their magnificence. And he said to him, "All these I shall give to you, if you will prostrate yourself and worship me." At this Jesus said to him, "Get away from me, Satan. It is written, the Lord your God shall you worship, and him alone shall you serve." Then the devil left him, and behold, angels came and ministered to him. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Father Francis with you on this first Sunday in the holy season of Lent. Glory to Jesus Christ. Glory to Him forever. So I wanted to talk about a couple of Lenten themes. Certainly we're going to talk about the gospel and Jesus' temptation in the desert. We're going to talk about that. In light of the first reading, of course, which is the temptation in the garden of Adam and Eve. But I was, just as a personal Lenten reflection, about, was it yesterday or the day before? I was watching a video, and it was about, I'm not going to mention the lady's name, but some of you might be able to figure out who I'm referring to. She's a very lovely lady. Unfortunately, a horrible tragedy happened to her and her family back in, I think, in October. And in the wake of this national tragedy, this young woman now is kind of being thrust into a kind of a national spotlight. And because she's being now scrutinized by so many people, I saw this video. Basically, it was a video about how this woman is not really, quote unquote, what she says she is, quote unquote. And I listened to part of it, and most of it was just somebody who was just, ranting, spewing a lot of their discontent, hate and discontent. And that's what a lot of YouTube channels are based upon, sensationalism. Maybe they're looking at politics and current events, but basically at the bottom line, it's, looking at all the, again, hate and discontent. So I watched about maybe 5 minutes of it, and I just said, well, I know where this is going. They're basically trying to tear down this young woman, trying to make her, seem like she's a hypocrite. And I, after I turned the video off and started doing other constructive things, I kind of realized, it's really easy to point out the hypocrisy in other people. And that it's a lot harder to point out your own hypocrisy, let alone admit it and accept it. And I think that's what Lent is really about in many ways. I mean, it's more than that. Certainly it's more than that. But again, I preached upon last week, which was not in our lectionary, the Pharisee and the publican, because that, I think, is one of the precursor gospels in the Byzantine Catholic Church. Like last week, or this week, sometimes our calendars are not congruent. I don't know if they are this year or not, but when they prepare for Lent, these are the pre-Lenten readings, and this, the one about the publican and the Pharisee, is a very powerful gospel, which begins, again, Byzantine Catholics really start preparing for Lent. They don't wake up on Ash Wednesday the way Catholics do and say, oh my gosh, it's Lent, They frantically try to, okay, I'm going to give up all these things and, whatever it is they're going to do. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying that I think there's a lot of wisdom in preparing slowly to enter into something as important as the holy season of Lent is. So I, doff my hat, to them and, salute them and say, what job well done. That's the best way to, I think, enter into Lent, because if we're prepared, we're going to, I think, have a better Lent all around. So that's why I think it's important to do that. But that being said, I think that part of the Lent, there's a lot of facets to Lent. It's a rich time. Even though we're giving up maybe some of our creature comforts, the legitimate ones, that is, for a season, and really trying to enter into the spirit of Jesus in the desert, especially in this gospel today, we see him going into the desert. And I think for a lot of people, when they look at Lent, they look at this gospel reading in particular, it's harsh. It's not fun. It's not entertaining. Well, I guess maybe it was entertaining for Jesus in the desert when the devil showed up, perhaps. There's a homily for you. Entertainment, devil, putting those two together. But interestingly enough, we read, and I think we kind of we don't look at it as we should, but many times we are told that Jesus goes off by himself to pray. And so the journey in the desert, the temptation in the desert, really wasn't meant to be a temptation. It was a time of prayer and fasting. And when I got serious about my health and my fitness a number of years ago, I kind of discovered that fasting isn't punishment. It actually makes you stronger and healthier. Now, it's not pleasant. It's not, let's say, there is a deep sense of joy that comes with fasting, but you kind of have to work your way into it. And in the first couple of days, it's not that easy. Again, now the church basically encourages us. The church has always encouraged, if you're Catholic, you're Orthodox, you're Eastern Catholic, the traditional days of fasting have always been Wednesdays and Fridays. And so many people believe that Vatican II somehow got rid of that. Well, it didn't get rid of it, but it did kind of bring some confusion. But again, traditionally, Wednesdays and Fridays have always been, for Christians, days of fasting. Okay, now it's not. Now, right now, you could say honestly, it's not mandatory, but it's still a spiritual discipline that we are encouraged to embrace. Okay, now, again, I'm not telling people to go out and do things that are going to be injurious to your health. I'm not a doctor, so right now I'm making a little disclaimer. I'm not telling you what to do. But I do remember there was a wonderful couple. I hope they're still with us on this side of eternity. But they were Paul and Carol Hinkle. And they were a lovely couple, just a lovely couple. Paul was very, dapper and distinguished, and Carol was just a lovely lady, is a lovely lady. And but I noticed that, when I started getting in my late 30s and 40s, I started putting on extra weight. And it just seemed like, wow, where's this coming from? Again, it's just middle age, this is what happens. Our bodies start the metabolism kind of gets all cattywampus and it doesn't work the way it used to, and so it's so easy to gain weight. You just look at a donut and you gain the weight. You don't have to eat it, just look at it, and but I remember noticing that they were very svelte. They were very lean in their maybe their late 50s. This goes back now probably 25 years. And I said to them, I said, what's your secret? You guys seem to be very, very fit and healthy. And they said, well, we just practice basic Christian fasting. And I said, what's that? I mean, I'm a priest and I didn't really quite know what that was. And they said, well, we fast the traditional days of Wednesdays and Fridays. And they said they did bread and water. I don't know if I want to do the bread, but I mean, certainly the water and a little bit of, alternative coffee or real coffee if you can handle it. But anyway, but I just remember that was a very powerful thing. And I remember that fasting, and when I finally kind of got into health and fitness, I was, close to 300 pounds at one time. Haven't gained it all back, but I've gained part of it back. But anyway, long story short, I've noticed, especially in my later years, I don't really need to eat as much as I did when I was younger. And if I kind of get myself into, it's a little bit of a psychological thing, an emotional thing, because food is a comfort. Well, it is a comfort for me, and and so. But if I discipline myself and I say, well, I don't really need to eat right now, and I just postpone that next meal until I'm ready to eat, and a lot of times I've got people all around me that want to take me out to lunch or dinner or breakfast, and so if I'm eating on top of that, in addition to that, and eating extra like I normally do, then I gain weight. It's a mathematical equation, simple one. But when we look at Jesus in the desert, he's not going out to punish himself. He's not going out to do penance. He's going out to make himself stronger, I believe, in his humanity. I mean, Jesus was divine. He was God in the flesh, God incarnate, but he also had a human body. He wasn't just a disembodied spirit that appeared to be human, as the Gnostics would have you believe. He was truly God and truly man at the same time. And so he did have a human body. And he experienced hunger, he experienced thirst, he experienced weariness, he experienced, exhaustion, physical exhaustion. He experienced, we know, of course, through his passion, excruciating pain, both in his body and in his spirit and his soul. So again, he wasn't just a disembodied spirit, a phantom, appearing to be human. He was truly human. So he went out into the wilderness to pray and to fast. And that made him stronger, not weaker. And so, when the devil comes, what does the devil do? This is another thing I talked about also, I think the week before, was I brought up the Dostoevsky's The Grand Inquisitor, and the whole story about the Grand Inquisitor is that the cardinal there reproaches Jesus basically because he says, well, you denounce all these things that people really need, quote unquote. We need food. We need food, but we need kind of like this Epicurean kind of thing. We need to eat until we're, until we're sick. I'll just say it that way. It's a little bit politer. We need that kind of, food. We need that. We need excess, excess in food, because that's the only thing that's going to make us stronger. No. We need entertainment, and we need lots of it. We need distractions. And we need power. And Jesus rejects those things outright. He doesn't need them. And he lets us know by his example that we really don't need the excesses that we think we do. A lot of us, myself included, tend to excess. And we think, because we think that's going to make us whole. We think that's going to it's going to fill that void. And the reality is that the only thing that fills the void is not the material, creaturely comforts or the desire for wealth and power and entertainment. Those things don't really fulfill us. What fulfills us, what sustains us, what makes us stronger is that fasting in prayer, that prayer and fasting. And that's the invitation that Holy Lent gives to each and every one of us, is that we can go out into the desert with Jesus. And again, I think the thing is that sometimes we think, well, the desert is a dangerous place. It's a scary place. It's a lonely place. But if Jesus is there, it's none of those things. It's a time of refreshment. It's a time of, again, being fortified, growing stronger. The clarity, again, this is just things that people experience, and I've experienced myself. There is a clarity in fasting when you embrace, when you embrace long-term fasting. Again, I'm not telling people what to do. But again, I would say get together with a spiritual director, a good priest who can guide you. And if you're new to fasting, you can start off easy and slow. Just give up one meal a day if you can, or at least just try and embrace fasting on Wednesdays and Fridays by giving up one meal a day. Try that. Maybe you can go until 3 o'clock. That's kind of the traditional cutoff point. Start off with no food for the whole day, and then at 3 o'clock you can break your fast with a small, simple, humble meal. You can do that. Again, there's extended fasting for, again, a lot of times there was a guy in Scotland. Maybe I'll close with this if I can. There was a guy in Scotland who was like over, maybe 400 pounds. I think he was, quite rotund. And he went on over a 365 day, I think it was over just a little bit over a year. And all he had was coffee, water, and vitamin supplements for those 360 some odd days. And he went down from like over 400 pounds to 184 pounds, I remember. And I don't know if he kept it off. That always seems to be the problem, the rebound. Rebounds are real. But we're not talking about fasting for quote unquote health and fitness reasons, but we are talking about the power that comes in fasting. And I will say this, from a personal experience, I have experienced, people, the reason why people take drugs is to feel in this, they want to have an alternate experience of reality. And they think, some people believe that certain drugs help them to see beyond. Okay, they kind of like get a sense of hyper reality, like I can see more than just the here and now. I can actually see something beyond. Okay, you know what? I'm probably getting a little too metaphysical here, but you're in an altered state. Okay, a lot of times when we do drugs, whether we're doing them under the direction of a physician, or we're doing the Class A drugs illegally, which is not good. I'm not recommending that at all, of course. But that's what people are looking for. They're looking for one, to feel good, and one, to kind of this sense of hyper reality, Now, I'm not telling you to fast just for this reason. It's like there used to be a thing called the runner's high. So if you did long extended runs, you would begin to feel this runner's high, and a lot of people experienced that, and it was kind of very euphoric. But I've experienced that with fasting, where you begin to experience reality in you're like a little bit, again, kind of not seeing beyond perhaps, but life becomes more, it's like the Vista Vision, it's chromachrome. It's there's a lot of, you see more color and everything's more vibrant. After you've done kind of an extended fast, and you do feel closer to God. I will be honest about that. You feel like, well, there's something now that the impediments that I have on a daily basis, whether they're distractions from, watching too many YouTube videos, or, the lethargy that comes from eating too many carbs, or, the distractions when I have, I'm angry at something, or I'm upset about something, all those things kind of like, they're like a barrier, they get in the way, and yet when you begin to fast from food and other things, those things kind of, they kind of melt away. And again, it's like on a clear day, you can see a lot of beautiful things. Whereas if you're in the fog, you're not going to see your surrounding reality as clearly as you would on a clear day. And I think that's what fasting does. So again, I think it's just safe to say that if we follow the example of Jesus, there's nothing to be afraid of. I think a lot of times people are afraid of Lent. And we can talk about that maybe next week. There's some reasons that Lent can be a risky endeavor, but a good risky endeavor, but a necessary one. So I'll leave it at that. Hope you're having a blessed first week of Lent, and let us continue to follow Jesus wherever he leads. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Ghost.